however justified, served to forever change the political landscape of the 18th century. Chapter 7: The Merchants of War. While it is surprising that those who played major roles in the war abroad had to turn to Masons, occultists, slave traders, and smugglers for support, it was hardly different back in the colonies. Men like Sam Adams, George Washington, and Patrick Henry would risk life, liberty, and property for the cause, but the motivations of others were not as pure. When war with England became reality, many American merchants lined up to make their fortunes. People who'd built fortunes from the importation of arms and supplies included New York's Livingston clan, Marblehead's Elbridge Gerry, Philadelphia's Stephen Girard, Boston's Thomas Cushing, and Virginia's Benjamin Harrison. Point 1: Benjamin Franklin put together what became known as the Secret Committee. Gaining an appointment to it was getting a license to steal, or at least to overcharge. The Secret Committee was supplied with an immense amount of funds from the newly formed Congress, and it was made up of merchants who knew the ropes, and were not above breaking the laws for their own gain. These men were responsible for keeping the colony supplied. The first chairman of the Secret Committee was the business partner of Robert Morris, Thomas Willing. The first contract went to his own firm, which raised an outcry from the other merchants and members of the new Congress. Despite the criticism, Morris, at age 41, became the greatest supplier of military goods in the war. He was born in Liverpool, the son of a Chesapeake merchant. After his father's death he joined the firm of Willing and Company. He later became a partner. The firm of Willing 136, the Merchants of War 137, and Morris had a fleet of merchant ships in the West Indies, which meant they participated in the underground economy that thrived under a massive complex and ever-changing rules and regulations. The partners both had reputations for being clever and honest. Smuggling was not considered a dishonest act. While Franklin realized that the combination of the firm's experience in the Caribbean trade and their network of agents around the world made Willing and Morris capable of transacting the business, Congress estimated that the firm would be making an exorbitant gain at the same time. Morris, in fact, wrote to an associate remarking that he stored powder until prices improved before delivering it to Congress. Point 2: Merchants did not see any moral dilemma in making a profit while defending the country. It did not help that the very first assignment went badly. The commission ship, the Lion, reportedly could not find any goods to be bought in Europe and returned empty. It was highly suspicious that a seasoned captain would return with an empty hold from such a long voyage. Morris offered to return the £30,000 $80,000 American dollars, advanced by the Congress, but instead a new assignment was given. Point 3: The second assignment went better. Ammunition and powder were bought in England, shipped to St. Eustatius, and then sent to the colonies. The firms taking the contracts were entitled to 2.5% on both the exported goods and the imported supplies. It was actually a very small commission considering the risk that the ship's owners were taking. This did not stop the committee from handing the contracts to their own firms, to friends, and to family. Robert Morris was quick to learn which angles could maximize profits and minimize losses, such as shipping the firm's goods alongside goods that Congress was paying for aboard American warships. Morris and Willing are not on record as ever having paid the freight for their company's exports of indigo and rice to France. Having Congress pay the insurance for the entire cargo of the ships was an opportunity Morris could not pass up. Franklin, with his great experience as a Philadelphia business leader and his connections with English and American merchants, was quick 138 the lodge in the Revolution to recognize the talent and administrative abilities of Morris. Congress would soon come around to accept Morris as the best man it had. It comes as no surprise that other members of the committee, which included Silas Deane of Connecticut and Robert R. Livingston, John Alsop, John Dickinson, and Francis Lewis of New York, gave the assignments to themselves or to friends. The Browns of Providence increased their slave trading fortune by war profiteering. Samuel Lottis, Thomas Cushing, and Elbridge Gerry of Massachusetts also participated in profiteering. Arthur Lee, a Virginia planter, was the biggest critic of the commercial side of arms procurement, in part because he mistrusted merchants. His brother William, however, took part in the double-dealing with speculations of his own. But the greatest amount of mud being slung at the profiteers was directed at Silas Deane. Dean and Lafayette. Silas Dean was born in 1737 in Groton, an early seaport town on Long Island Sound. His father was a blacksmith. Dean, however, managed to put himself through Yale, and was admitted to the bar. Teaching school in Hartford, while also practicing law, Dean's career path took a dramatic turn when he settled the estate of Joseph Webb. Whether it was opportunity or love, the young lawyer met and married Webb's wealthy widow, Mahitabo. Her family was active in the West Indies trade, and Dean gave up teaching and the law. Instead, he began making voyages to the West Indies and learning the trade. After his first wife died, he married Elizabeth Saltonstall, the granddaughter of a governor and daughter of a general. While her family had also been active merchants, their political influence was greater, and the opportunist Dean went into politics. A member of the new Congress and a merchant, Dean was in the right place at the right time to get assignments as a munitions supplier. When Dean lost his congressional seat, because of a dispute with fellow Connecticut delegate Roger Sherman, Dean's close friend Morris found a better assignment for him. He went to Europe as the Merchants of War 139 envoy to the French and a merchant, and his mission was to enlist the French in the American cause, or at least to procure supplies for the war. By some accounts Dean exaggerated his accomplishments with the French, but he did well in the war supplies department, where he was entitled to a 5% commission. At home his enemies grew, and Congress not only failed to pay his commissions, but also charged him with misappropriating funds. His letters to a British correspondent suggesting a negotiated settlement of the war earned him the accusation of treason. When Dean finally left Europe to return home, he was gripped with a violent abdominal attack that led to his death within hours. It was believed that he was poisoned by the British double agent Dr. Edward Bancroft. Whatever truth is in the accusations of Dean's detractors, he deserves credit as well. Early in the war Dean contracted for 30,000 rifles, 4,000 tents, 30 mortars, and clothing for the troops. He was responsible for the introduction of more than one young French aristocrat to the American cause. One of Congress's problems with Dean was his giving of contracts to French officers who desired high ranks, and believed they were getting them by enlisting in the American cause. One such officer was Marie-Joseph Beaulieu's Roch Gilbert du Motier, the Marquis de Lafayette. Born in 1757, Lafayette's father was killed in the Battle of Minden at the age of 27 by a battery commanded by the English General Phillips. Lafayette was only 2 at the time, but he was destined to get revenge. 22 years later he commanded a battery in Richmond, Virginia, and bombed a house where General Phillips reposed. For the future Major General was raised by his mother and grandfather, but they too met an early demise when Lafayette was 13. He was, however, one of the wealthiest men in France, and had advisers who looked after his numerous holdings. At 14 he was committed to an arranged marriage with his 12-and-a-half-year-old cousin, Marie-Adrienne de Noailles, and they soon set up home in Paris. De Noailles' family was equally noble, and of ancient lineage. Her grandfather was the Marechal Duc de Noailles, which gave him a 140th Lodge, and the Revolution hereditary right to maintain his own cavalry regiment. Lafayette and his brother-in-law, the Viscount of Noailles, met for dinner in August 1775 with the Duke of Gloucester, who was the brother of King George III. In a candid moment the Duke announced that the insurgency in America could actually escalate and provoke France to start new hostilities against England. The Marquis and the Viscount called on a third relative, the Comte of Segur, who married into the D'Eon family, with their plan to join in the fray. The trio, dubbed the Three Musketeers by their family, quickly rushed to the home of Silas Dean to enlist. The young Marquis had the rank of Captain of the Reserves when he sailed to America. Described as an overgrown boy stuffed into a handsome uniform, he was pudgy, red-haired, and already balding, and had a long nose. He supposedly proclaimed, "The moment I heard of America, I loved her. The moment I heard she was fighting for freedom,